How we doing, San Jose? How you feeling? Are we ready for Hillary? Are we ready for Hillary? All right. Well, with that in mind, I know I'm the only person standing in your way. So let me respect your time. But I have a couple quick things I want to say. A couple quick things I need to say. The last time we were in San Jose, I was with another Clinton, former president. And, he had something, it's interesting. I was listening to all the speakers that were just out here a minute ago, and I'm quite serious about this. Because last time I was here, your husband made a point, Madam Secretary, that it needs to be made over and over and over again about what makes us great. And the point he was making, that's one of the points. But he made a point, I'll try to paraphrase. He said, you think about everything that's going on around the world, nations and people literally being torn apart because of racial and religious and ethnic controversies that have fueled fanaticism, that have fueled terror. You have to think about where you are right now, in San Jose. In one of the most diverse cities, in one of the most diverse counties, in the most diverse state, California, in the world's most diverse democracy. Now, here's the point he was making, and here's the point I want to make, and it's a contrasting point. The world looks to us, looks to every one of you, to see that it's possible to live together, to advance together, and prosper together across every conceivable and imaginable difference. That's what makes us great. What makes us great is we don't tolerate our diversity here in California. We celebrate our diversity in California. That's a value, and that's a contrasting value in this campaign. And that's a value at risk. Hillary Clinton understands we are all better off when we're all better off. She understands what Dr. King talks so evocatively about, right? That we're all bound together by a web of mutuality. We are all in this together. So it's in that spirit that I'm here, that I'm honored all of you are here. And it's in that spirit I will briefly introduce to you the next President of the United States. Very briefly. Very briefly. We have someone here. We have someone here who believes in equal pay for equal work. We have here a candidate for president that believes in comprehensive immigration reform, not building walls. We have someone here who believes in a Supreme Court that will overturn Citizens United. We actually have someone here who believes in science. Climate change is not a hoax. We have someone here that understands that a great society does not make it harder to vote than to buy an assault weapon. And very briefly, we have someone here who does not believe the following. Does not believe in banning all Muslims from the United States. That does not believe in building walls, but believes in building bridges. And someone, and listen to me closely here, someone who will never be caught saying he is excited, or in this case, she is excited about millions and millions of people losing their homes and ending out on the streets and sidewalks so he can make more money. You will never hear that from Hillary Clinton. Shame on Donald Trump. We have a progressive who's pragmatic. We have a dreamer and a doer. We have someone who gets it and gets it done. We have someone that you should be proud of. Someone who's been a change maker all her life. And so my message to you in conclusion is the following. You got work to do. We've got work to do. We got a primary in a few days. We've got to step up. We've got to step in. We've got to share our voice. And we have got to make sure she has wind on her back as she moves towards that convention by winning this primary on June 7th. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for the next president of the United States, Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Oh, thank you, San Jose. Wow. I am so excited about being here. I can't tell you how wonderful it is to be in this city, which, as the Lieutenant Governor just said, is a city all about the future. All about the future of the economy, the future of our society, how we are going to be stronger together. And I want to thank Gavin Newsom for being here and for his lifetime of service to this state. And I can't tell you how wonderful it is to have someone who is a progressive, who likes to get things done, just like me, standing on this stage. I want to thank Mayor Liccardo. Thank you for being here, Mayor. I want to thank Larry Stone, the assessor here in the county, all the elected officials. But mostly I want to thank you. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. Now, you know, when you run for office, and particularly when you run for president, you always come and tell big crowds like this is the most important election, don't you? You hear that. I happen to think every election is important. But you know what? This is the most important election because we've got some big decisions to make as a country. And there could not be a starker difference than there is between me and now, as of today, the Republican nominee, Donald Trump. You know, I'm proud of the campaign that Senator Sanders and I have run. We have run a campaign on issues about the future. We both want universal health care coverage. We both want to make college affordable within the reach of every young person who wants to go to a public college or university. We both want to rein in and prevent what happened in the Great Recession with the misdeeds of Wall Street from ever happening again. We are on the same page. So we are going to be coming together as a unified Democratic Party to make our case against Donald Trump, because we, Senator Sanders and I, our supporters together, have so much more in common than we do with Donald Trump. People say to me, well, you talk about Trump a lot, and I do, and I'll tell you why. Because what he is saying is dangerous and divisive. What he is saying is harmful to our future and our country. Our president, President Obama, is in Japan today, meeting with our closest allies. And when he came out of the meeting and went to the formal press conference that ends events like that, he said, he reported that the leaders of our friends are, and I quote, rattled by what Donald Trump is saying and what he is promoting and what he stands for. Well, I'll tell you what, the best way to reassure ourselves and the rest of the world is to make sure that Donald Trump, this loose cannon, never gets close to the White House. You know, it was bad enough when he started his campaign in his very first hour criticizing and insulting immigrants. You know, he called immigrants rapists, murderers, criminals. It was disgraceful. And then he went on to insult women, to insult John McCain, a war hero, to make fun of a man with a disability, to denigrate Muslims. Honest to goodness, there's nobody left by the time he gets finished with criticizing everybody he can. That is no way to run for president of the United States. I'm telling you, I am so looking forward to debating Donald Trump. I can't wait. Because here's what we're going to talk about. What is our positive vision? I have ideas about how to create more good jobs with rising incomes. We're going to invest in infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, our tunnels, our ports, our water systems. We are going to finish the job of connecting up America so everybody has access to affordable internet connections. We are going to make things in America again by incentivizing advanced manufacturing. You know, here in California, you are inventing the future, new technologies, new research every single year. Well, let's make those products in America again. And let's agree to fight climate change, which Donald Trump calls a Chinese hoax. Honestly, you know, you heard all the Republicans when they were running. Part of the reason the Republicans have ended up with Donald Trump is because they could never criticize him about issues because they basically agree with him about issues, right? So when the Republicans were asked, well, what do you think about climate change? They always said, oh, I don't know, I'm not a scientist. Well, they could go to San Jose State and find a scientist and figure out all about climate change. One of the ways we're going to combat climate change is by investing in and creating jobs in clean, renewable energy. I have set two big goals. I want us to deploy 500 million more solar panels by the end of my first term, and enough clean energy to power every home in America by the end of my second term. That will not only put the United States in the lead on dealing with climate change, but it will also create a new economy, because think about this. Some country is going to be the clean energy superpower. It's either going to be China, Germany, or us. I want it to be us, don't you? And when you think about millions of jobs in infrastructure, manufacturing, and clean energy, these are jobs that can't be outsourced. These are jobs that have to be done in California and across America. Now, what does Donald Trump propose? He proposes to build a wall. A wall. Now, honestly, we've been trying to figure out about that wall. We figure it would cost about $25 billion. Now think of what else we could use $25 billion for. We could build 1,500 new elementary schools so that kids have a chance to go to a modern, good elementary school. We could pay for college for 300,000 veterans if we did that. So there's a lot that we will have to talk about when we finally get to stand on that stage together. And the other thing about Trump's policies is he doesn't give you specifics. Have you noticed that? It's a pretty much of a top line, top of the water sort of proposal. And yet one thing we do know is when it comes to tax policies, he has two ideas. One, he wants to have billionaires get even lower taxes. His tax plan is written by a billionaire for billionaires, the best I can tell. And he doesn't want you to see his taxes. Those are his two principles when it comes to taxes. Now, I disagree with that. Number one, I think we should tax the wealthy. They have not been paying their fair share to support America. And number two, my husband and I have released 33 years of tax returns, and the only 2 years that Donald Trump has released, he had to release to get a casino, so he had to come up with his income tax returns. The only 2 years he's released, he paid 0 in federal income tax. 0. And yet he goes around saying he wants to build up the military, make it the strongest in the world. Well, it is the strongest in the world, and I will keep it the strongest in the world, but he won't pay a penny to make that happen. So anybody who's ever been nominated by a major party has had to come up with their tax returns, and we're going to talk about this every day. Because either he's paid no taxes or he's paid very little. The only way to find out which it is for him to release. Either he's as wealthy as he claims, or maybe he's not. The only way to find out is for him to release. Maybe he is really charitable, or maybe he is not. Only way to find out is for him to release. So it's time to release his tax returns. You know, the other thing is you never hear Donald Trump talk about education. He never says anything about it, best as I've heard. Well, here's where I stand. We need early childhood education so every single child is well prepared to succeed in school. We need to be a partner with our teachers to help them do the job that we expect them to do on behalf of our kids. We need to make community college free so that you can get the additional training, skills, and education to get a job. We need more technical education through high school programs, community college programs, business-supported, union-supported apprenticeships. We need to have more ways for people to get the skills that will be competitive for themselves and their families. I'm excited about that. Nobody works harder than Americans. Nobody in the world works harder than Americans. And we're going to make it possible for every young person and maybe not so young person to get the skills that will enable that person to have a good job with a rising income. Education's a part of that. That's why I want you to have debt-free tuition. You won't have to borrow a penny to go to a public college or university. And we have a plan to help you pay down and pay off your debt so you're not burdened by your student debts, which is such a problem. So I think what I'm proposing will help to grow the economy. And I got to tell you, it's just a historic fact. The economy does better when we have a Democrat in the White House. And, you know, you don't have to go back to the beginning of the Republic. Go back to the 1990s. After 8 years, 23 million new jobs, and incomes went up for everybody, not just those at the top, middle-class families, working families, poor families. More people lifted out of poverty than any time in recent history. We were on the right track. We even had a balanced budget and a surplus. We could have paid down the national debt. So what happens? I'll tell you what happened. The Republicans came back and slashed taxes on the wealthy, took their eyes off the mortgage and finance markets, and you know what happened, the worst financial crisis since the Great Recession. And it is true, as Gavin was saying, there's some video that's surfaced where Donald Trump is actually rooting for a housing collapse because he says, well, I'll be able to make a lot of money. 5 million homes were lost. A lot of homes right here in California and where I just was in Nevada. Think of the heartbreak. Think of the suffering and disappointment. So we know a lot about Donald Trump. He roots for himself, not for you. He wants a good result for himself. He doesn't care who gets hurt in the process. That is not the kind of person who should be the President of the United States of America. We cannot let that happen. And you know, when it comes to health care, he wants to do away with the Affordable Care Act. I'll tell you, I want to make it better. I want to improve it. I want to get the cost down. Before there was something called Obamacare, there was something called Hillary Care. I am committed to doing this. And we're going to get prescription drug costs down, and there's two other issues we're going to address: mental health and addiction. There is just too much suffering. People with mental health are not getting the treatment they deserve to get. And there still is a stigma. We've got to stop this. People who have diabetes should get treated just like people who have depression should get treated. And we've got to do more. We've got to do more to move people who are addicted onto the path for treatment and recovery, not onto the path for jail or prison. That is not the right decision. So I am looking forward to debating jobs, the economy, taxes, education, health care. And I'm also looking forward to debating what is one of the most important parts of your decision when you vote, and that is voting for someone who is both president and commander-in-chief. I understand why President Obama was in that meeting and trying to field all the questions and concerns from leaders around the world. Because look at what Trump has said in recent days. He's attacked our closest ally, Great Britain. He has praised the dangerous dictator of North Korea. Now, this is a little funny, though. He praised Kim Jong-un. And the North Korean ambassador to the UN came out yesterday and said they don't want to talk to Donald Trump. I mean, I don't attribute a lot of good sense to that regime, but that's probably the right decision. Trump has even suggested that it's fine with him if more countries get nuclear weapons, for heaven's sakes. You know, for 70 plus years, Republicans and Democrats, we've been trying to keep nuclear weapons out of more countries' hands, and certainly out of more terrorist hands. It's one of the most serious risks we face. You can't talk about nuclear weapons like, you know, it's a walk in the park. He's even said he'd use nuclear weapons against ISIS, which is not even a state. He wants to return to torture. He wants to pull out of NATO. He wants to ban all Muslims. I mean, really. I can see why President Obama said that his counterparts were rattled. They're watching this. You know, when you make these absurd, outrageous statements, that's not just heard in the big hall where you talk. That's heard around the world. You know, people who count on the United States, our steadiness, our strength, our stability, they look to who is running for president. They look to who is president. In a lot of places, it is the beacon that keeps them going, trying to figure out what is America doing? What is the American president saying? And you think about the recent presidents we've had. We may have disagreed and had really serious differences, right? That's part of the American DNA. But I remember after 9/11, George W. Bush went to an Islamic community center. Remember that? And basically said, we are going to go after those who attacked us, but we're not going to be attacking each other. And President Obama has worked so hard to reach out to people everywhere. And you know, it matters who's sitting in that Situation Room. I spent a lot of hours there. I spent a lot of hours. And I'll just give you one example. It's a famous example. It's whether or not the president would go after bin Laden based on the evidence, the intelligence that was presented. And I was asked to be part of the small group that was assessing this intelligence. And we worked so hard because I personally, having been a senator from New York on 9/11, having gone to Ground Zero 24 hours after we were attacked, I wanted to do anything I could to bring bin Laden to justice. And we had to evaluate this intelligence. Was this funny-looking, big building a place where the most wanted terrorist in the world could be hiding out? We all went through it over and over again, and it came down to three choices. Don't do anything because it's just not strong enough to act on. It's okay, but we don't want to risk special forces, so let's use a missile to take this place out. Or it's the best chance we've had to get them. So let's send in a SEAL team. And then the president went around the room, around the table, and asked everybody what we recommended. And people who I deeply respect, we were not all in agreement. Some people said, nope, you shouldn't do it. Some people said it's not worth the risk of a special forces team going in, but if we think it's good enough, take the missile strike. And I was among those who said, no, we have to find out. If we do a missile strike, we'll never find out. We'll never know. So we all gave our advice, but then that moment comes, and this is what you need to think about, where the president gets up and says he's going to go think about this. Because ultimately, you can have all the advisors and all the people who are experts, but the president has to make the decision. And you know, he came back and he said, yep, we're going to go with the SEAL team. And we all held our breath that day when the attack occurred. We were all just under the most intense stress. There was a lot of planning. People had done everything they could. The military was superb, thinking through every possible contingency, but things happen. One of those helicopters clipped the barbed wire on top of the wall and went down, but everything had been thought through. So, bin Laden was found, he was killed, his body was brought across the border, and he was identified. And no president wants to seek out those kinds of situations, but every president faces those hard choices. And we need a president who can be steady and strong. And I promise you, I will take good care of our men and women in uniform, and I will protect our country and help to lead the world. Now, finally, let me say this. There's a lot of other issues that Trump has staked out. And I want you to know where I stand in comparison. I will defend a woman's right to make her own health care decisions. And I will defend Planned Parenthood against the partisan attacks. I will defend marriage equality and work to end discrimination against the LGBT community. I will defend voting rights and appoint Supreme Court justices who will overturn Citizens United. I will defend labor unions and the right to organize and bargain collectively. I will fight for comprehensive immigration reform with a path to citizenship. And I will stand up to the gun lobby and work to get common sense gun safety reforms. Now, I can't do any of this without your help. I want to unify the Democratic Party, and I want to unify the United States of America. I will go anywhere to meet with anyone to find common ground. I will also stand my ground. But we've got to bring this country together. We do not need to be divided As Lincoln said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. We cannot stand this kind of hate talk and rhetoric and demagoguery. So here is what I'm asking you. If you've already gotten a ballot sent to your house, fill it in and send it in. You can still get a ballot all the way up through May 31st if you want to vote like that. And please do if you think you might have trouble getting to the polls on June 7th. And then on June 7th, please come out and vote and bring everybody you can who knows we've got to start right here in California making the future that we want to see for our country, for our children and grandchildren. If you will vote for me, California, I will work my heart out to give you the future that we deserve. Thank you, and God bless you.